Welcome to Weird Mythic Podcast. I'm here with Poopy Paws Little Kitty, and I'm here with Serena. I'm Naomi. I hope everybody's having a great start to their weekend.
Yeah, hi guys. Welcome back to another episode. This is our second episode of the week.
Yes.
Cryptids.
Yes.
We are serving
Cryptids
you a cryptid each week.
Yep. And if you guys don't know, Poopy Paws is Serena's cat. So sorry, she's just between us, and I couldn't help. She's joining us now.
Yeah, she's not as vocal as Louie is, but
she's here. So just imagine a really pretty kitty just chilling right next to the microphone.
Are you going to talk today? No? She's trying to read my notes.
Yeah, that's exactly what she's trying to do.
Or eat them. All right, well, today we're going to be talking about cryptids. But before we get into that, we do want to go over our giveaway that we have on Twitter.
Please go to Twitter and follow the directions.
We have a pinned post on there. All you guys need to do is retweet it and follow us. And you'll be automatically entered into the giveaway where you can win any merch item from our store.
Any of them.
As well as the rights to an episode.
Yeah, pretty much. You get to choose.
You get to run an episode.
Tell us what to talk about, or we would also like something personal. Like if you have a story about something paranormal, an experience that you've had, that could go along with an episode, but it could be a cryptid. It could be something creepy.
You get to pick anything. Even if it's something we don't normally talk about. We're going to do it for you guys. So, go to our Twitter for that. And we did launch some merch 2 weeks ago.
Yes, we did.
So, it'll be linked down below. You can wear us on your body.
On your face, on your phone.
You can drink something out.
Thank you again. I'm just going to keep saying her name.
Oh, yeah. Thank you everybody who's supported so far. Everything we get from that is going to go directly back into the podcast. So, it really means a lot that you guys are supporting us.
Yes, thank you.
Love
I didn't think people would want to wear us, but I'm so excited that people like our cartoon.
Hey, we're cute, okay?
We're adorable. I know that.
All right, let's get into it then.
Yes, let's get into our cryptid. What cryptid are you talking about, Serena?
I am going to be talking about Nain Rouge. Hopefully, I didn't say that wrong. I don't speak French, y'all. I know, it's surprising.
I think you said it perfectly.
So this creature, goblin, hobgoblin type deal, whatever you want to call this little mischievous motherfucker.
All right.
He lives in Detroit, Michigan.
Oh,
Detroit.
I thought I was saying France. When you said you don't speak French, I immediately went, so we're in France? Oh, I guess not. We're in Detroit, guys.
Well, so Nain Rouge is French for red dwarf.
Okay.
And other names that he goes by will be the Devil of Detroit, the Demon of the Strait. He originated in the early French settlement of Detroit. And, so they're thought to derive from Norman French takes of lutin, a type of hobgoblin.
Okay.
And along with Native American tales of an impish offspring of the stone god.
Oh.
I know. I don't have any more on that, though.
Okay. So. Write that down for later. What is the stone god?
All right, so the trouble began at a party in Quebec one March evening in 1701.
1701.
At the castle of St. Louis, the French explorer Antoine Lament de la Mode Cadillac, that's a name.
Cadillac.
That's a name. We're going to call him Cadillac, by the way. He would soon depart to claim Detroit for the French and their fur traders. Yeah, so him and a bunch of other homies that are like official type people are chilling. Okay. They're drinking. They're having a good old time.
Okay. Talking about the fur trade, all right.
Yep. They're tipsy, okay. Into that shimmering scene burst a swarthy, fortune-telling crone with a scrawny black cat on her shoulder.
Oh, I love the little scrawny black cat.
She called herself Mary Monique La Sorcière.
Mary. Her name is Mary.
It's not spelled that way, though. It's like M-E-R-E.
Mary.
She said to him that things would work out well for him, but only if... Okay, so she was like, hey, man, you are about to go to Michigan.
Okay.
And you are going to come across this guy called the Nain Rouge.
All right.
And the only way that things will work out in your favor is if you are nice to this guy.
So
he loves
Cadillac
flattery.
needs to be nice to this guy when he goes to Detroit.
Yes, he needs to be nice to this creature. Otherwise, it ain't good for you.
Listen to the crone. She's telling you how it is.
Yep. So, the next day, he set out on his mission and arrived to present-day Detroit by July. Mm-hmm. So, he's chilling along the river. And this was home to the Anishinaabe and other indigenous groups, including the Huron and Miami. They set up a fort there. Yeah. The next few years were actually well for Cadillac and his family. He had a family. He's thriving, living his best life. And then one evening in 1707, he and his wife overheard a conversation. So they're eavesdropping now.
Eavesdropping. Okay? Gotcha.
During this conversation, someone claimed to have spotted Nain Rouge.
Oh.
Cadillac's wife bristled. This bitch was fearing. Okay, she was shaking in her boots now. Did they wear boots?
Yes, of course.
She did.
Yeah.
She was wearing boots, and she was shaking
in them.
And she was like, hello, hubbykins. These people are talking about Nain Rouge, okay?
That's the guy you're supposed to be being nice to.
Thank you. And then she goes, beware of the Nain Rouge. Isn't that what that prophet told you?
Yeah.
Cadillac was like, whatever, we're fine.
Everything's been cool since we got here. Why worry about that now,
it's
right?
Nothing, like, whatever, okay? And then they kept walking on their way until the demon scrambled into their path.
Oh.
So little red man is now...
Jumping in the way.
Jumping in the way. He was very red in the face with a bright glistening eye and razor-sharp teeth. I think he has two eyes. I don't know why one was glistening.
Well, that's all you need. I guess you just need the one glistening.
And then Cadillac, he was not happy to make the demon's acquaintance. He apparently hit the Nain with his cane.
He just hit him?
He hit him. So... You fucked up first there.
Yeah.
And then he goes, get out of my way, you red imp.
It's not what you're supposed to say to a demon, I'm pretty sure.
The creature obeyed, disappeared out of sight as fiendish mocking laugh pierced the still night air.
Oh, no.
So now we know what that means. The creature, so that happened. And then Cadillac's life took a huge nosedive. Mm-hmm. He was removed from his important position in... things that he was doing. He was shipped off to Louisiana, and he hated Louisiana. He called it, like, a wretched place.
Oh, no.
And then there were conflicting sources, but I think in the end, he ended up getting sent back to France, and he was, like, stripped of all his money and imprisoned for, like, he was a liar, and he was a storyteller, so that all kind of caught up to him now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's the origin story.
Okay.
That's kind of where it started. So, let's talk about some other encounters, I guess. So, the Nain Rouge appears as a small, childlike creature with red or black fur boots.
Okay.
I'm thinking thigh-high boots. Like, he's...
all right.
You know?
Ready to go.
It's also said that he has blazing red eyes and rotten teeth. Ew. Nain Rouge is said to have attacked the first white settler of Detroit. So, that's that guy,
there
right?
There you go.
And then the creature is also said to have appeared on July 30th, 1763, before the Battle of Bloody Run. The small tributary of the Detroit River, which still... I said river.
River.
Which still flows through what is now Elmwood Cemetery, turned red with blood for days after the battle. It is said that the creature was seen dancing on the banks of the Detroit River.
I think I've heard that story, actually.
So he's having a good old time. Multiple sightings occurred in the days before the 1805 fire, which destroyed most of Detroit. General William Holt reported a dwarf attack in the fog just before the surrender of Detroit in the War of 1812.
A dwarf attack.
Yep.
So this probably happened not so often, I'm guessing. A dwarf attack. It was a dwarf attack. Got it.
A woman, you're not very much taller than him.
I'm not, I'm just saying. You don't find many people saying it was a dwarf attack. Like, I wouldn't be inclined to believe him.
Maybe not in 1812.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
in the middle of the battle. feel
like I would be I'd believe him. That's what I'm saying.
And then he lost Detroit, so whatever. A woman claimed to have been attacked in 1884 and described the creature as resembling a baboon with a horned head, brilliant restless eyes, and a devilish leer on its face. More recently, in 1996, the Nain Rouge was spotted by 2 drunken nightclub patrons who claimed to both have heard a strange clawing sound similar to... Cawing sound similar to a crow. It's all scratched. Coming from a small hunched over man who was fleeing the scene of a car burglary. The creature was described as wearing what looked like a really nasty fur coat.
A real nasty fur coat. And that's exactly, like, this was a nasty fur coat. He needs to go take it to the cleaners.
Yeah, so those are my encounters. A little bit more.
Yes.
The local culture in Detroit, Michigan, he is, like, still a part to this day. So there's a beer company that has a signature brew called the Detroit Dwarf in honor of this creature. Love to get my hands on it.
I'm going to have to try that.
And then I think it's a lager too, so...
Let's try it.
Yeah. And then, just a side note.
So now we're trying this beer.
In 2015, Woodbury Wine introduced Nain Rouge Red, a French red wine blend named after the dwarf. Okay. So there's a lot of, like, things named after him. It was reported that 2 utility workers had seen the Nain Rouge before an ice storm in 1976. They thought it was a child who was climbing up the utility pole, and then it jumped and ran away when it got, like, seen them. So, what child do you know is going to be? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they want to climb them, but not in the middle of the snow.
I always wanted to climb one.
Right, but usually you don't get that far up.
Someone gets you down before you... Yeah. All right, there is a parade yearly. I want to say it's been going on for the last, like, 5 years.
Cool.
It's kind of more recent.
About him?
Yeah, so basically it's called Marche de Nain Rouge. In the spring, Detroit holds a costumed parade called the Marche de Nain Rouge, which the creature is traditionally chased out of the city. So they're doing this as a way to get him out for another year. At the conclusion of the parade, an effigy of the Nain Rouge is destroyed, banishing the evil spirit from the city for another year. Oh, wow. It's tradition that the parade participants and spectators are encouraged to wear different costumes each year so that when the Nain Rouge does return, he will not recognize the people who outed him from the city limits, that he won't be able to go ahead and take on personal vengeance. Okay. There are, like, protesters at the parade. Like, it's like a joke, obviously, but they're, like... they call themselves, like, the Friends of Nain Rouge, or signs that say, like, we are Nain Rouge. Oh, wow. How funny. And they're, like, lightheartedly protesting that he's not to blame for the city's ills, and that no one should be banished from the city, especially those that have been there the longest. Right, but, and he would have been one of those people who's there the longest. So I thought that was funny. And then on the website... I have a little snippet from there that says, the Nain Rouge has been a harbinger of doom since the time of Detroit's founding. Each year we hold a parade in the Cass Corridor to trick the Nain with our terrible French, ... and costumes. So, that sounds fun. We should go one year. Come on. I would definitely like to go and just chase it out of the city for the hell of it. There's floats, they roll out marching bands, and crews representing all corners of the city. They get rid of the man. How cool. Cute, right? That's so silly. I like how there's people just now still doing that. Yeah, though. It's like a big celebration thing. It's an excuse to get drunk. So there's that. We're here for it. Yes. All right. Neat. I've never heard of that one, Serena. That's cool. Neither had I. And then I was like, let me do one I had never heard of before. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. I like it. That was fun. That was fun. Because he doesn't seem to do a whole lot of harm to an individual. Exactly. Unless you're like being a dick. Hit him with a cane or something. Wow. Oh, how fun. All right. Well, I'm going to be talking about the Skinwalker today. Yay. I believe Serena really wanted me to do this. I did. I forced her into this one, you guys. Which is fine. It's fun. And so as I was doing the research and looking for people with encounters with the Skinwalkers, I started watching
part of, Hunt for the Skinwalker, and I think it's on History or Sci-Fi. I don't remember. I think it's on the History Channel. But as I'm watching it, I remembered my own encounter with something, Serena. And so I grew up on that farm up until I was like...
The horse farm.
Yeah, up until I was just about like 10 years old. And I remember this one night, it was... I must have been 7 at the oldest. Like, I wasn't that old. So I must have been around 7 years old. And we had bunk beds in this room, and I was on the top bunk. And part of the bunk bed was in this corner, and there was part of the window, actually, I could see out the window in some of it. Some of it I was only, like, facing the wall, and then there was, like, this little part of the window. And one night, I woke up because I could hear this howling. And it was so loud, like, it woke me up out of a dead sleep as a 7-year-old. And I'm like, where's this howling coming from? And I look over, I roll over, and I open up the curtain, and I legit see what, in my head as a 7-year-old, it's a wolf, because it looked huge to me. I'm thinking it was more likely a coyote, because that's what's in the Sacramento Valley. We don't have wolves up here. But as a 7-year-old, I'm opening the curtain, it's pitch black out, and there's this 4-legged coyote wolf in my front yard howling at the moon. And I see it, and it's howling, like looking right up at the moon. And in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, can it see me? I swear to God, as soon as I said that, its head turned and looked at me. I saw yellow eyes, looked right at me. Okay. And I look right back at it. And the only thing I could think of doing was putting my head down, because I'm a 7-year-old, and I'm like, if you hide from the monster can't see you, right? So I placed my head back down on my pillow, and I don't think I even counted. I think I just went, like, okay, it's gone. And I left my head up, and there was nothing there. But was that a skinwalker? Ooh. I freaking hope not. I don't know. But how weird. But I totally didn't...
Oh, hold on, let's go back, because what in your 7-year-old brain would be like, let me open this curtain and see what's there? Like,
yeah, and the thing is nobody else in the house woke up. I think I had one of my stepsisters, my dad's been married a few times, so one of the stepsisters, she didn't wake up. I remember asking my cousins who lived on the same farm but in a different house. I remember asking them if they saw anything. Nothing. I remember asking my dad, like, did you hear that wolf last night? And Dad's like, no, there's no wolves around here anyways. Like, but nobody else heard it. And I thought that was the strangest thing, that I'm the only one that woke up to this. And it sounded so loud to me. So loud. And that's why I think it was so strange for me to remember it as I'm doing research on skinwalkers. So
how there's you my weird. Memory.
I did, and that's the thing. Like, when I talk about it, they do talk about how they have these glowing red eyes, and I'm like, I don't remember red, but it was piercing yellow.
And you locked
straight.
Eyes.
I locked eyes with it. Dude, no, I looked right at this thing's face. And it looked at me.
Was there anything off about it that you remember?
No.
Because I think with skinwalkers, isn't there always a trait or an attribute that's a little bit off?
Uh-huh. Okay. We'll get into it.
Maybe it was bigger. It was a coyote, but it was huge.
I don't know. That's the thing. And there was always farmers' dogs that would sometimes come onto the property, but it didn't look like a dog. It looked more like a coyote or a wolf. It didn't register as a farm dog or a cow dog or anything. So
crazy.
But
what is a skinwalker?
Let's talk about skinwalkers. All right. So I'm mainly going to be talking about the Navajo and what they believe as skinwalkers. Something I do have to say, that with all Native American tribes and beliefs, especially when it comes to stuff like this, they do not want to talk about skinwalkers. So please don't be that asshole to go up to somebody who is Native American and start asking them about skinwalkers. They don't want to talk to anybody about it, and it has nothing to do with you. It's not your belief. It's not your religion. It's not your tradition. So
in a lot of these cultures, they say that if you talk about it, it attracts it. So even with when I talked about Wendigos, just me saying that name, people who are indigenous are really believing that. They don't even say that.
Yeah, so they're not going to want to talk to anybody about it. Just throwing that out there. So this is the research that I have found. I found that a lot of the sites were saying that skinwalkers sometimes started off as medicine men or witches, but not like witches you would think of doing evil on or harm on people. These are more of medicine witches and medicine men. But somehow later on in their lives, they decided to start using their medicine and their powers for bad or for darker, malevolent things. And they ended up turning into skinwalkers. Sometimes, in a lot of the stories that I did find, if you want to become a skinwalker, you would have had to kill somebody very close to your family, somebody who's very close to you in your family, and most often it would be a sibling. And then you would acquire supernatural powers, which would include shape-shifting. Most of the times, they would shapeshift into coyotes, or wolves, foxes, cougars, dogs, or bears. When they were not in their shape-shifting form, when they weren't in their animal form, they would just, look like people sometimes, with some, oddness to them. But they would also be wearing the skins of the animals they would shapeshift into. I did see that a lot of the time the Navajos will only be wearing buckskin. They won't be wearing anything that was predators. So keep that in mind, that they wouldn't be wearing a buck and be shape-shifting into a deer. It's more likely something that's more of a predator. A lot of the time, they would just be shape-shifting into that. So they are able to change into any type of animal if they really need to, but there really is just the one, and the majority of them are like the coyotes and the wolves and the dogs. A skinwalker can also disguise and possess themselves into a human and take control. I didn't find a whole lot of encounters of that happening, but I did find in a few different sources that they can take control of people, and they do try to lure you in. The word for skinwalker in Navajo, I will not try to pronounce, but it does translate into with it, he goes on all fours. And that's why a lot of the time the skinwalkers are in the shape of a man, but also a dog. How can you tell if somebody is a skinwalker? One of the main things is when they are in their animal form, their eyes will not be animal eyes, it will be human eyes. And it's the opposite when they're in their human form. They would be looking as if their eyes were more animal eyes instead of human eyes. And when you shine the bright light on them, in the dark mainly, their eyes would change into a bright red.
Well, see, and you didn't shine a light on it or anything, so maybe if you would have, the eyes would have been red.
Maybe. Skinwalkers are very fast and agile. It's very hard to keep up with them if you're trying to run after them, and people have tried to run after these things, and they can't even try to keep up.
I would never.
There has been sayings that skinwalkers also gather together, and they will perform certain rituals or ceremonies. It's also been said that they'll practice cannibalism. There's only a few things that talked about that, not too many, and considering that the Navajo don't even want to talk about skinwalkers, it's probably very hard to find if all of it is credible. That's why I'm like, a lot of them are from some sources, some are not. So they like to trap people because they want to try to bring you in for whatever reason. We're not sure why they're trying to take people and have you follow them. But what they will do is they will mimic something. So let's say you're out somewhere, almost like the Wendigo. You're out somewhere and you kind of see this, dog-like creature. And all of a sudden you hear something that sounds familiar, like a dog bark or a person. And it sounds like something that's familiar to you, and you will go and try to walk towards it because you're like, what the hell is going on? So in one story that I think we need to talk about is that in 1864, the Navajo were forced off of their lands, and the U.S. Army put them into Fort Sumner for 4 years in New Mexico. And they were in horrible conditions, obviously. They weren't given proper water to drink or even grow anything, and a lot of people passed away in those few years. It was only 4 years that they were in this camp. And a lot of people passed away. So once they got back to their homeland and things did get a lot better, a lot of the members of the tribe were thinking that people were being skinwalkers, and that's one of the reasons why so many people died when they were at that fort. And they believed that a lot of these skinwalkers came back with them to their homeland now that they're back. So there was a bunch of there was this one period in time where it was almost like a witch hunt and they were trying to get at these people who they thought were skinwalkers.
Figure out who
exactly.
out of the community was skinwalkers.
So there was about 40 people who the Navajo suspected to be skinwalkers, and they were killed because of whatever reasons they believed them to be a skinwalker. So
and
they
some
were
of them probably weren't even.
They were very scared of this happening. They lost a lot of people, and they didn't want to be taken away from their homeland again. If you want to kill a skinwalker, you will have to have a very powerful shaman to be with you, first of all, or at least somebody who knows exactly what the hell they're doing. And what they'll do is they'll turn their spells onto this. Like, the skinwalker is a supernatural being that can shapeshift and does have magic. So what the shaman will do is try to push all that magic back onto the skinwalker. The only thing I could, like, relate it to is the 3x3 rule. So
it comes back to you
three. Yep,
yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
So that's what I kind of attributed it to. Or you could shoot the skinwalker, but the bullets need to be dipped into white ash. Or you could stab it, but the knife has to be dipped into white ash, and it needs to be in the back of the skinwalker's head. It is very taboo, again, to talk about skinwalkers to anybody. So that's pretty much all about skinwalkers and what they are. Again, the way that they're described, if you hear of somebody who has seen a skinwalker, that they will look like an animal, more than likely a wolf or something, and all of a sudden it'll pop up on two legs and take off running like a man. And a lot of the time people will say that they smell something rotting, and then they'll attribute that to another skinwalker because they saw this weird coyote thing run across their field. So, let's talk about some sightings, yeah? Do you have any, like, that you know of? I know I've heard a lot of different skinwalker stories.
I've heard a lot of them, but nothing that I could go into detail about.
All right.
That I don't want to leave stuff out, you know?
Yeah. So, as I said, a lot of people will see, like, the coyote and then it'll pop up and be a man. A lot of the times, a lot of them in New Mexico, they'll say they'll be driving down this road and an animal will bolt out and start running next to their car. And as they're speeding up, this animal is keeping up with the car. So this coyote, wolf, dog thing is going 40, 50 miles per hour. And that's not possible. And they'll also say that all of a sudden it'll turn into a man and be running alongside of the car. And the man will start hitting the car, like trying to get him to turn over.
I would pass out.
Yeah. So that's a lot. Those are the main sightings that you hear of, is that story
and
right
this
there.
Is where? Like New Mexico?
In New Mexico. There was this one story back in 2014, and there was this photo that was going around, like, Facebook. It was debunked, guys. So if there's anything in New Mexico, it was actually from a movie back in, like, the 50s. It was debunked. It wasn't real. I came across that quite a few times. I also wanted to bring up, because you're on TikTok, and I found that there's this one TikTok guy called @ThatOneCowboy, and he has about 3 different stories, and you can hear it. And it's hella creepy, dude. Like creepy. He's on his horse, and you hear, hey. And you see him, like, turning around, and you see the horse do the same thing, and then you'll hear, hey. And it sounds further away. Then it cuts to the next video, and it's dark, and you hear hey again, but it's a different voice. It doesn't sound like the same voice to me, at least, and it's at night, and he's just filming the horse's reaction. And, like, there's another video, too, but I don't think I saw that one. I just saw it. Like, there's a third one out there, but it's pretty creepy. If you guys want to look it up, it's @ThatOneCowboy, and, yeah, it's pretty freaking creepy. One of the stories that I did find was actually in the comments section of a couple of sites that I was looking into, and I saw it posted from one site to another, like, hey, check out this comment from this site kind of thing. So there was this girl, and she was going out for a weekend with 2 of her friends over at the mom's house. So, like, her friend's mom, and the friend was able to bring 2 friends along, okay? So 3 girls all together and a mom. And they've been out to this ranch before. It sounded like the mom kind of takes care of it on, like, a weekend basis. So she told her daughter, bring your friends along. And I think they're about 13, 14 years old. So they've all been to this farm before. It's nothing new, but this was the first time that all 3 girls got to kind of do, like, a whole girls' weekend and be out at the farm with themselves and not have to go back just a few hours after being there. So one of the first days they're there, they go out on this walk and they're going to go towards this pond and they're going to go fish. And they've done it hundreds of times before, right? Well, as they're walking towards the pond, it starts to rain all of a sudden. And one of the girls decides to head back. And the other two girls are like, well, we're going to stay here and we're just going to go ahead and fish if, like, the weather clears up. So one girl heads back to the cabin house. The other two girls just kind of stay underneath a tree. They're still going to walk over to the pond.
Never split up.
Never split up if you've seen any horror movie. So the two girls that are there, they start to see something kind of off in the distance. And it looked like a deer to them. And they thought, like, that's weird. It's raining. I don't see any other deer. And the one girl's like, usually they're not out here at this time of day. And so they're still looking. Then I guess all of a sudden this deer, like, looks up at them. And the one girl said that its mouth was open almost like a dog. And then they're like, do you see this? The other girl's like, yes. And they bolt back to the house. So these girls just get the fuck out of Dodge, right? And they get back to the house, and the one girl's there, and she's like, what's going on? Everything cool? And they describe what happened, and she goes, well, that's very strange. Nothing else happened that day, okay? So they didn't go fishing. They obviously kind of stayed at the barn.
I'm all the third real suspect, like, sus. It was actually her. Like.
So the next day, they go back out and they decide that they're going to try to go fishing again. And they didn't see the deer at first. I believe they saw it again, though. I'm kind of losing my spot. However, pretty much they're walking back up there. And the one girl who didn't see the deer was asking more questions. And the one girl was like, it had antlers, but it didn't. And it looked like a deer, but it didn't. And they kept saying, like it had antlers, but it looked like a dog, but it was tall like a deer. So they're going back to where, like, the girl was at the trail right before they get to the pond. And she's like, I saw it over there. So they walk over to where they think it was. And as they look over to where they would be on the trail, and they're like, this thing would have had to have been hella tall. Because the grass is really tall. And the fact is she saw the whole body of the deer above this grass. So they're like, well, that's very strange. Because, like, they're, like, in this tall grass. And they can't imagine you being able to see the whole body of a deer from that point. So they're like, this thing must have been hella tall. And they're like...
They went looking.
They went looking. These are like little kids, right?
That's some shit I would have done at that
I
age.
know, me too.
I know better now.
They end up finding, like, tracks to, like, this deer, but it led to the water. It didn't go anywhere else. They saw other tracks that didn't lead anywhere. So they end up going back to the house after the whole day, whatever, and... So it's the middle of the night on, I think this is like the third day. The mom's asleep upstairs and the girls are downstairs. And they start hearing this, like, scratching noises. Was it scratching noises or, like, I think it was a tune or something. And I'm trying to find my spot. So let me see here. Where is it? Yeah, I'm down here.
Oh.
Okay, here it is. Okay, sorry guys. So, it was a flute. So, it's like the third night they're there, the mom's already asleep, and it's like 12 in the morning, and they start hearing this flute all of a sudden. And it's just playing like this one note.
Like,
yeah, and they're like, everyone hears it, so the girls freak out, start going and closing everything up, and they close everything else downstairs. No noise. They're like, okay, so something outside. About an hour or so goes on, they decide it's time to go to sleep. I don't know how the hell they can decide to go to sleep after hearing a weird flute in the middle of the night. So they go upstairs where the windows are still open, and they can hear the flute going off.
First of all, why are the windows still open?
The windows are still open upstairs, and they go and they close everything. Then they go back to bed. And that was they're scared. That was it. They went home the next day. But I'm like, how freaking strange.
It sounds like a not deer to me.
A not deer. Thank you. Yeah. How strange is that, though? And it was in, like, I believe the story was from, like, New Mexico or somewhere in the Four Corners.
It could be Skinwalker.
It could be a Skinwalker, but it sounded like a not deer. Yeah, which I just found out after doing research on Skinwalkers.
See, I knew about that previously.
Mm-hmm. So there was that. And I just thought that was just creepy, especially since they kept looking for it, and that they had the smarts enough to be like, this thing was really tall considering the grass was so high.
Yeah.
And I just thought that really stood out. So that would have been something I did at 13, 14 years old. I would have done it too.
I would have too.
I would have went looking for it. So I was like, I saw something weird. It looked at me and it looked like a dog, but it was a deer. So
me and my friends would have done the same thing.
Definitely would have. There's a couple of others that I'll post to our site that it is Skinwalkers, I think, from what the stories were told. They're all on like YouTube and stuff. There's all kinds of different stories on there. There is one I want to kind of talk about that I'm not sure is technically a Skinwalker because it isn't here in the continental United States, but it is up in Alaska.
I think they could be anywhere.
I think they could be anywhere. Why not, right?
Well, yeah, because they have the Inuit up there. I'm sure they have some version of...
So, in 1990, there was this paramedic, and again, this was in Alaska, and they had a call at the state jail. So they went to the state jail, and the patient there was a Native American. He was an Ute. They start to talk because they actually have to take this patient over to the hospital for whatever reason. I didn't look into the reason why they had to go pick him up and take him to the hospital. So it's quite a ways. Like, Alaska's a long drive, I'm assuming, anywhere. So the paramedic starts talking to this patient, and they ended up getting onto the subject of hunting and fishing. And the paramedic was talking about how he would go to this place called Dogfish Bay. And as soon as the patient heard Dogfish Bay, he shoots up, like, out of his little thing and goes, "Did it bug you? Or did it bother you?" And the paramedic goes, "Yes." Knew exactly what this man was talking about. And then the patient asks, "Did you see it?" And the paramedic goes, "No." So let's get into the story now.
Serena is thoroughly confused.
The paramedic used to go hunting and fishing up in Dogfish Bay quite often with all of his hunting and fishing buddies. And on one of their, hikes up there and one of their hunts, they're coming back down to their camp around Dogfish Bay, and this huge storm hits. So they actually have to make camp somewhere that's not their actual campsite. So it's just the stuff they have on their back. So it's probably like a tent, and each of them have like, a little sleeping bag and enough food for what you need for a day or so. So they make camp, and that first night, one of the men wakes up, and he goes over and he's now tapping the next guy on the leg. And the guy wakes up, who happens to be the paramedic, who's the one being woken up. And his friend's looking at him, and he has his finger over his mouth, like, shh. And so the paramedic guy slowly wakes up and looks out, and they notice there was this man walking and pacing outside their tent, doing a circle, and then doing another circle. And it's not like walking like a regular man, and it's not making any fucking noise. There's no noise in this storm all of a sudden. So the paramedic wakes up the third guy and does the same thing, the whole shh, like telling her to be quiet. And they wake up, and like they said, there was no sound. And I guess everybody just kind of waited for this thing to walk away. And as they were trying to really listen to see what it was, and they're like, it sounds like it's almost a bear, because you could kind of hear like mushing in the ground. That's not quite like trekking like a person. It's more like scooting, but then big clumps. And it just, the way they were describing it wasn't quite human, but they definitely saw something on two legs circling their tent.
Well, a bear's not going to just...
A bear's not going to circle your tent either. And they said they watched it walk around their camp. So the day comes back around. They didn't see any tracks around their tent at all. And the storm is still going on, to the fact that they can't keep moving. So they have to stay there another night. Yeah.
I just had a heart attack, you guys.
So second night comes around, and the same thing happens. That the guys wake up, and they're waiting. They're like expecting.
With my gun.
So the second night, they want to get their guns, and they still don't. And the same thing happened. It just circled their tent. And this time it was still quiet, but they could also hear more grunting noises. So it was getting a little still weird, like, movements as it was walking around their tent.
It was getting impatient.
Yeah, something was going on. So they actually have to stay a third night now.
Stop.
So they're here 3 nights.
I would risk it.
So third night here, and it happens again. Something is walking around their tent, and the guys are getting really freaked out, and they are able to get a hold of their gun at this point. They jump out with their gun, and there's nothing there. They kind of heard something scurry off, but they didn't see any tracks. There wasn't anything around. They were finally able to leave by that third day, okay?
Well, thank you. I can never go camping again.
So, nothing happened, though. Once I get back to the tent and they start kind of talking about this, apparently there's something in Alaska that has been terrorizing the Aiute tribe, and to the point where it's documented in their, like, folklore that this big, hairy man has chased them away from their campsites before. And so that's what that man was talking about to the paramedic. As soon as he said, I used to go hunt in that Dogfish Bay, he's like, did you see it?
Oh, I just got chills.
So.
Bigfoot, is that you?
Bigfoot? Yeah. So.
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait, why didn't they have their guns until the third night?
They had them the whole time, but apparently they had them off to the side, and they thought it was a grizzly bear, so they didn't want to startle it. And I'm going, you still should probably grab your guns. But for people who are hunting and fishing should have their guns right next to them when they're in the wilderness in Alaska, I would think. But maybe I'm wrong.
I would be sleeping with that strap, like...
Dude, I don't even know. But
scary.
Those are... So, Skinwalkers very much freak me out. I don't like the fact that they like to mimic, and it kind of reminds me of the Wendigo. Anything that's mimicking something that you know or that sounds familiar just really creeps me out.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, yeah, I do have...
I like the Nain Rouge.
I like the Nain Rouge just because, like, he doesn't seem to really do harm to an individual, even though it sounds like he started fires in Detroit. I mean, that's not really cool, but he doesn't seem to be malevolent now.
I don't want to say I like him because people died, but I would much rather come into contact with him than I would a Skinwalker. Yeah.
I just don't see how you could survive a Skinwalker.
You have to carry around bullets dipped in ash.
Yep, pretty much.
Or a knife dipped in ash and stab that fool in the back of his dome.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. There was another story of people who were camping in New Mexico, and it was a big camp that they always went with, like, a group of friends, and it was the first year after one of the friends had sadly passed. So they're all doing their thing, camping, and the second night, one of the guys gets up by himself and goes for a walk.
You never do that.
And it's a great, beautiful morning, and he's enjoying it, just like, yeah, it's nature. And then he looks over, and he sees his passed away, deceased friend's face on an animal body staring at him, and then says something, like trying to get him to come near him. Dude just gets the fuck out, gets back to the campsite, tells his friends to pack shit up, and they all leave.
I would leave everything there.
They just left. He's like, after what I just saw,
I would have left all of my gear, and I would have just booked it. It's
creepy as hell. I don't like it.
Well, I am not going to sleep tonight. Thank you.
I'm going to finish watching the Skinwalker documentary when I get home.
I don't want to walk you to your car tonight.
You don't have to. It's okay.
That's terrifying.
So, yes, everybody tell us your stories. I want to know if anybody has any weird Skinwalker or anybody in Detroit. Tell me what goes on down there with the Nain Rouge.
All right, guys. Well, give us a follow on our social.
Yes.
What's our social media?
So we got Instagram, Weird Mythic Podcast at Instagram and at Facebook.com/WeirdMythic. We also have a Gmail account. We want to know your guys' stories, suggestions, tips, or anything that we missed in our stories. Maybe you're from any of these places and you got something else to tell us about it that we missed. Enlighten us, please. Go to weirdmythicpodcast@gmail.com.
Yay. Yeah, we also have our merch that we dropped 2 weeks ago. I would love it if you guys would support the podcast.
Yeah.
Honestly,
We need
needs so much.
We need a new microphone.
Serena needs a microphone, but I think we have. We'll get there. It's
we
okay.
got this.
Everything's gonna go back into the podcast. So if you guys do choose to support and join the Weird and Mythic family,
yes, please.
And then we have a code for you.
Yes, we do.
You can get 10% off with the code Mythic at checkout.
Yeah.
Until October 31st. And then once again, go check out our Twitter for our giveaway.
Yes, our giveaway on Twitter. Woo woo.
All right, this is Naomi, Serena, and Poopy Paws signing off.
Signing off. Have a good night, everybody.
We'll talk to you next week. Bye.